Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monsters Den. It's our post-holiday episode. We're done talking about killer Santa Clauses and all that kind of stuff, but we are going to talk about stuff we've been watching over the last couple of weeks throughout the holidays as we took a break from the Silent Night, Deadly Night series and got on to other regular stuff. Let me introduce the crew. We got Mr. Dan Brown in the house. Craig Kaminski is here as well. Davy Gallagher, he's up really late, as always, from Scotland. King is here, Chris Laszlo, and Thor himself, Mr. Jamie Laszlo. What's going on, gentlemen? Welcome back.
Good evening.
3-week vacation. Nice.
I did that.
Right, not too shabby, right? Not too shabby.
Wow. Good. Give me a time to regroup. I had to retrain on how to get on this show. I forgot how to do it. It was like,
That's because you were too busy rewatching Twilight, right, Dan?
not in 4K yet, guys. Wait a minute. There you go. Let me just bring that on just to fuck with everybody.
That's almost as good as the Sidney Taylor hates Rush on the Hudson Valley Squares, right? Every show's got one of them. So anyway, today's just kind of like an easy what we've been watching episode. We do these periodically during the year, and why not kick off the year with one of them? We're going to do 2 trips around the Zoom here, and I think some of us maybe have divided our things that we're going to talk about into genre and non-genre films, or maybe it's all genre stuff or whatever. So whatever each person wants to do, we'll each have a few picks per round. So Dan, we'll start with you. What do you have to share with us first here?
Well, something I showed at the last show, I popped it up in the end, but something I had purchased from Vinegar Syndrome, and that is the Prophecy trilogy. Put it quite frankly, I've always liked the first 2 films. The third film is not weak. It's a little bit weaker. It is the first 3 Prophecy films, all the ones that had Christopher Walken in them. I'll put it to you this way. I've owned the Blu-ray. I've liked the first 2 films. And let me tell you, the transfer on this is fantastic on this film. And I'm not really going to go into what Prophecy is because everybody pretty much knows it. But the 4K is stunning. The 2K is amazing. There's a bunch of documentaries on there and such. And you've got new interviews of the cast and directors and so forth. They did a knockout job. Vinegar Syndrome, once again, hit it out of the park. 3 films and a slip sleeve box is like $64. And that's not really bad for the 3 films. And you get it in Blu-ray and in DVD. And both of them look stunning. That's one.
Dan, could you show, because Vinegar Syndrome do such a great job on their packaging.
Yeah, and the packaging on this is you've got the box, and the box opens, and then you get your thing out, right? And this is a box that's just screaming. I can't get it out. God damn it. There it is, like that. I mean, this box screams, just ding me on the corner. So that's the only problem with it. But other than that, I'll manage somehow to like mangle it somehow in the future. Anyhow, number 2, I decided to get a little nostalgic, and it was the holidays, and I watched a film called Fat Man. Mel Gibson. Anybody saw this? This is a dark comedy in which he plays Santa.
Yeah, never saw it.
Yeah, he plays Santa Claus, okay? But he actually works for the government. And he lives in a town in Alaska. And the basic gist of the story is he's gotten kind of pissed off about things. He doesn't have no holiday spirit. He's seeing the world is falling apart around him, and he's just depressed. He drinks, he goes to the bar downtown, and so forth. It's not like Bad Santa, but he just looks like Martin Riggs years later with a beard. And somewhere along the line, there's this rich young kid who is spoiled brat. His family's extremely wealthy. And it starts out where he doesn't win a science project for the 4th year in a row. So he hires a hitman played by Walter Goggins, who people know him from The Wire and from Justified and such. And Walter Goggins has a hard-on for Santa because he felt Santa left him behind as a kid. And he does all these major hits, and he collects all these toys that are made in Santa's workshop that have a plaque on it that says made by Santa's workshop. Well, come to find out, people don't believe in Christmas anymore. This kid's hiring Walter Goggins to go out and kill Santa, or his name is Chris, okay? And he's in this small town, but when he gets up there, the government has already come to visit Kris Kringle because he works for the government. All this thing with Santa giving toys is like something that the government does, like a government job. And they are taking this away, and they want him to start making munitions parts for airplanes. So he figures the only way he could pay the bills because the government is going to shut Santa Claus down. In the meanwhile, Walter Goggins comes up to try to kill him, and it just goes off the rails. It's just kind of dark. It's not a film for everybody, but it's just so bizarre. I mean, this has been watching stuff. It's been the winter of the weird for me. So I've been watching all kinds of weird stuff. Great line in the film where Walter Goggins faces off with Mel Gibson, and he goes, "So what are you going to do, fat man?" And Mel Gibson stands there with this steely look in his eye, and he goes, "You think I got this job because I'm fat and jolly?" And next thing you know, gunfire commences. It's a fun watch. Not a classic, but it's just so offbeat. Fat Man. Next one. VFW. Okay. Starring a veritable who's who of second grade or second rate action stars. William Sadler from Die Hard 2 and The Mist, a number of films. Martin Kove from Cobra Kai. David Patrick Kelly from The Warriors and played Luther in 48 Hours. Fred Williamson, as we all know he is, blaxploitation star. Stephen Lang, the actor who's made a whole new career for himself as an actor, playing crazy, deranged old men in films. And finally, George Wendt is even there from Cheers. So basically, there's this drug in the outskirts of Detroit. The city's a shithole, kind of like The Crow. And these veterans get together at the VFW. And while they're there, the drug dealer in town, somebody robs the drugs from him for vengeance, and the girl ends up in the VFW. And they are besieged by all of these major like crack addicts or this new drug that's out there that are almost like zombies out of Dawn of the Dead. So it starts out like, okay, this is going to be kind of, hacked out, action film, whatever. Let me tell you something. Once the action starts, it turns into Grindhouse 1975. There is guts, there is gore, there's explosions. I mean, it's just off the rails. It's just a fun, entertaining film.
Does the whole film take place in that VFW hall?
Pretty much in that, other than
It's
going
kind of like Assault on Precinct.
Yeah, it touched upon all these things, and all the actors and these older guys. I mean, like I said, they're second rate, so you wouldn't call them exactly the Expendables, and because of their age, you probably call them Dependables. But that's about the extent of it all with that. But yeah, it's a fun ride, and I enjoyed it. I saw Chris on one of the shows, and I saw he had sold a copy of it. I saw you had VFW, and he goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's a fun film." So I figured I'd revisit it, and once again, I was entertained. So.
Yeah, speaking of 4Ks, I got the 4K for like $8.
Really?
And yeah, Pete, you nailed it. It's very similar to Escape. The Carpenter film.
Within the last 4 years, it was made.
I'd say 2020 it came out. It actually came right before COVID.
Recent. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been 4 years. So then see the next one here real quick. So I got 8, so I'm real fast. Okay, another Vinegar Syndrome release called The Black Room. Okay, The Black Room is a film that came out. It didn't do well in the theaters. It's about a couple living in California who they're not getting it on anymore. They have a couple of kids. There's a lot of interruption. So the husband decides to stray. And he sees an ad in a magazine or LA Times saying about a $200 a month room up in the Hollywood Hills overlooking a mansion. So he goes up, he makes an arrangement to rent the room so he could have trysts with women in this and that. Well, the house is owned by a brother and sister, and they have this very incestual, weird relationship. He has a rare blood disorder, okay, that basically she takes care of him. The people that are renting the room, okay, when they bring women up and so forth, one of the arrangements he has is the brother is allowed to photograph. He's a still photographer, having sex or whatever they're doing. But eventually what happens is they end up, without giving anything away, they end up killing the people that are in the room to get blood to help her brother. So it goes into a vampire type mythology. It's interesting. It's weird. The camera angles are really interesting. The writer of the film and the producer was a guy named Norman Thaddeus Vane, whose only other entry in the genre is he did a film called Frightmare a couple years later called The Last Horror Star, also I think another Vinegar Syndrome film, which has kind of a campy side to it. This film is interesting. I watched it. It moves slow. It picks up. It gets very, very interesting. And then finally, you say the next day, I went, wow, that was actually pretty interesting and unique. And I watch it; it's very good. The cast, pretty much unknowns. One guy named Chris McDonald, you've seen as a character actor in many TV shows in America years later. But the most interesting member of the cast, a woman named Cassandra Gava. Cassandra Gava, she played one of the witches in Conan the Barbarian. She played in Amityville Curse in the genre things. But her most famous role of all, which you see hanging in the movie, is she was the model, if you could see it, for Jefferson Starship's Spitfire out. And in the film, it's so funny. There's a big poster of it prominently displayed. They walked by it twice. Interesting buy. Came out on Vestron, had limited release, kind of bombed. It became a cult thing on Vestron Video for years, and it was fetching a very high price for many years, the VHS. But that and Linnea Quigley, one of her earlier roles as a babysitter. So it's worth an interest in the 80s genre. It's worth watching. That's my first four. There you go.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Vinegar Syndrome always does a good job and unearths all these weird oddities from the past, you know. So. All right, Craig.
All right. So I have some things here I broke mine also into two with genre and non-genre things. So I believe my first one here, I classify this as junk food type movie where I know it's bad for me and I know it's stupid, but yet I am yet sucked in to watch it anyway. And let me open. And that is, can you see it? It's
it didn't Prince of Darkness.
Well, that's what it is. It didn't come out that right. It's John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness.
That's not junk food.
Well,
it's a steak.
It's one of those where I watched this on Shudder, and
that's the airline version.
I haven't seen it in a while, and so it's like, oh, what the heck? I'll watch this, and it's kind of weird that a couple guys from Big Trouble in Little China, Jamie's favorite, turn up in his church, and they find a swirling bottle of mouthwash that has the devil in it somehow, and I mean, it's kind of a weird story and everything, but yet I'm sitting there just continually watching it, even though I know it's kind of a silly movie, but it's fun. It is still a watchable movie, but God damn it, I always kind of qualify it as sort of a junk food movie. I know it's bad for me, but yet I'll watch it anyway, and or leave it run. It's like, hey, there's Alice Cooper, and he just killed the guy from Riptide. So
I think that's a brilliant John Carpenter film.
But it's a fun one. I mean, and again, I watched this on Shudder. My next one here was one that I think I had forgotten to mention from last time. There we go. And it's Death Ship from 1980 with George Kennedy. This is about a cruise ship that sinks, and the survivors, there's maybe 8 or 10 of them, are in a lifeboat, and they come upon this derelict boat that's kind of rusting away, that has no passengers or anything. They go onto it, and they slowly find out that it's a Nazi ship that was used for interrogation of prisoners, and of course it's haunted. So everybody starts to see or hear strange things. And George Kennedy, who's the captain of the ship, the cruise ship that went down, it just kind of slowly starts Jack Nicholsoning, going bonkers like in the movie, until he starts hunting some of his fellow passengers down. So a little weird. There's a good a bloody shower scene that seems to go on forever, that one woman goes in just to rinse off, and the water turns into blood, and it goes on for what seems like forever, and she won't like leave the leave the shower. So it's a little bit of an out there movie. But I watched this on Tubi, and it was a little. It's not too bad. It's where there are worse ways to spend 90 minutes of your time. My third movie is Dan had mentioned, a movie with some B movie outcasts. Well, this one is like way farther down the alphabet, but it was a lot of fun. This is called Death Ring, and if you could see, it's probably pretty tough to see, but up top here it says Norris, Swayze, and McQueen. Yeah, it's Mike Norris, Don Swayze, and Chad McQueen. So it is, and the villain in this is a gentleman here, Billy Crudup, who is chewing scenery like it's a bag of Doritos. I mean, and
isn't it Billy Drake?
In a nutshell, the movie's about. It's kind of like one of those. Most dangerous game type movies. Mike Norris is taken prisoner onto this island, and a bunch of rich guys all bid to see who can hunt him down and kill him first. It doesn't come out until later, but Don Swayze is one of the prior contestants who is presumed missing or killed on the island, but he's been like living in a cave for the last I don't know how many weeks or so, but his hair still looks fabulous, and he's actually clean shaven, despite not being in civilization for whoever knows how long.
Somehow.
Yeah, it's got of course each person encounters Mike Norris separately, and they have everybody's kung fu fighting, and it has some good kill scenes with everybody. It's extremely cheesy, but it was a pretty fun watch. So if you like this is from 1992, I believe, but it just screams 80s in it when you see some of these actors. There's a couple of good nude scenes in it too. So Chris, I know that will help keep your attention if some of the action is not sufficient enough. But Death Ring, this one was a lot of fun.
Who's the villain in that?
That's
Billy is his name Billy Crudup?
Isn't
No,
he
Billy
awful young
Drago.
to be 1992?
I think it's Billy Drago.
Drago, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
He
I'd
played.
say he'd be like
played-
15 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. that'd be-
Yeah,
He
I'm
played-
sorry.
He played the hitman in Brian De Palma's The Untouchables.
Yeah, I believe he
Oh,
passed
that
away.
guy. Yeah.
I believe he passed away a few years
He did,
ago.
yes.
But yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't. I
I
wasn't.
love those exploitation covers where it would say Stallone, and then you
Yeah.
read the back and it's
But
Frank
it's just great
Stallone
that it says Norris, Swayze, and
Yeah.
McQueen, but yet it's
or Mitchum,
not
maybe
those,
Chris Mitchum. Yeah.
not the ones you're thinking of. And Don Swayze really does look like Patrick Swayze in the face, and he has the Roadhouse hair in this as well. So it's a fun watch. My next one here, this was from '86, I believe. It was The Wraith with Charlie Sheen. Another kind of a goofy movie, but still a fun watch. I've seen this before, but it's been a long time. A mysterious souped up vehicle is kind of taking out some of the people in this small town. The part I always remember is Clint Howard always saying, "You lose your race, you lose your car," whenever he pops up in this. There's a really good nude scene with Sherilyn Fenn in this, so keep your eyes open for that. And a good soundtrack as well. This has some for '80s. It's a good metal soundtrack. Has Ozzy Osbourne and some Lion, which featured Doug Aldrich later turning up in Whitesnake, and some other decent bands of the time. But a fun '80s movie. My last one for this round, I guess you'd say it's a common movie, but I'd never seen it before, and that is Madman from 1981. Pretty much a slasher. camp at a camp movie, sort of a takeoff on what The Burning did with Cropsey, and everything. And Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead is in this movie, but under a different name. I believe the reason was because this movie was not done by the Screen Actors Guild, and so they changed their name for that at the time. But a decent movie of the time if you like your early 80s slashers. And again, this is I've always seen this movie listed or on tables for sale at some of the movie marathons that we've gone to, but I've never actually sat down to watch it. So it was fun. It's a good movie. So Madman from 1981.
Hey, Chris, didn't you show that at one of the Hudson Horrors?
Yes, and then I had the cast and crew
Yes.
at the show, signing autographs, taking pictures. Yeah, that's a fun early '80s slasher classic for sure.
It's one of those that kind of gets overshadowed because everything it does is kind of generic. 3 years after, 2 years after, but the time was kind of shocking. But
I think wasn't it filmed a couple of years prior to being released? It got shelved for a
yeah, it
while.
was really early. But by the time it kind of came out, it already looked a bit old-fashioned, a bit old hat, as you say, more like The Burning and where things were going with Friday the 13th, those kind of things.
Cool. Chris.
I didn't watch any stuff in the garage, so I don't have any discs, so I just made a list of the shit I seen recently. But the first one, I actually saw this in the cinemas, as they say over in the old country.
The pictures.
The pictures, yeah. The Iron Claw, the wrestling movie.
That was
starring Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White. Yeah, I was going to say, to go with the Monsters Den theme, do the claw. It was pretty good. I wanted to love it. I mean, the acting was good. The problem is, like, I knew everything they were talking about, and the timeline is just completely fucked in this movie because they have way too much material that the movie starts in 1979 and it ends in like 1994, and they're trying to cover that in 2.5 hours. And me and my buddy Sean saw it, and we're both big wrestling fans. I mean, I went to my first wrestling show in 43 years ago, or maybe longer, right? Whatever 1980 was. And, Sean's a big wrestling fan. My wife Denise was there. She liked it too, but didn't love it because it's kind of choppy because they have so much ground to cover, and there's just so much stuff that they smashed together that didn't make sense. Like, perfect example, Kerry Von Erich in real life wins the belt, the world title from Ric Flair in 1984. And then he does get in a horrific motorcycle accident and loses his leg. In real life, that happens in 1986. But in the movie, it happens the same night that he beats Ric Flair for the belt. But then they never mention the belt again or Kerry not having the title. We just see Ric Flair having the belt again, like later in the movie. So I'm like, all right, like shit like that, kind of bothered me. The movie's really not so much about wrestling. It's really about, the brotherhood and this family. And the thing that sucks too is they cut out a whole brother.
Mike Von Erich, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really good. It reminded me of the Queen movie in that the more you know about the subject, the more it kind of bothers you because you're like, oh, what the fuck? That happened. It didn't happen like that, though. And so I enjoyed it. I would definitely buy the disc. But yeah, a lot of the timeline stuff just really bothered me.
Plus the fact that a couple of the Von Erichs have like gone on record in recent weeks saying that a lot of shit that is in the movie did not represent them well at all, right?
That should be a mini series, really, shouldn't it?
100%, Davey. All three of us, me, Denise, and Sean, when the movie ended, we were like, this should have been like a 1-season Netflix show or a 1-season Hulu show or whatever. Like you need like 8 hours. 2.5 hours is not enough time. There's just because there's too much ground to cover, And afterwards, we wound up watching the Pam and Tommy Lee Hulu series, which
That's
is
what
like,
it should have been. Yeah, flip those two things.
and we were like, what the? You didn't need this much time
Yeah.
for Pam and Tommy Lee fucking, but you know, for the Von Erichs of World Class Championship Wrestling, you know, more time would have been great. So pretty good, but not amazing. The other one I saw at the picture show, another one which ties in with Silent Night, Deadly Night, the 2023 movie from John Woo, Silent Night, starring Joel Kinnaman. And I am a huge fan of the early movies of John Woo, all the stuff he made in China, like The Killer and Hard Boiled and Better Tomorrow. And he's made a shit ton of movies since then, like Face Off and the one with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah, exactly. And
Arrow.
I'm like, all right, this is the best thing he's done since he left China.
Mm-hmm.
But on the same hand, it's still pretty lame.
That's not saying much. Yeah.
Yeah. So seriously though, I really think it's the best thing he's done since, I think Hard Boiled was the last movie he made in China. But man, there's just a lot of stupid shit in it. And like maybe 40 minutes in the movie, I'm like, oh my God, this is a fucking remake of They Call Her One Eye. Because I'm like, all right, let me get this straight. So our main character is mute from a traumatic event. They decide to get revenge, and their plan is to do three things: learn how to drive a getaway car, learn hand-to-hand combat, and learn how to shoot. I'm like, this is fucking They Call Her One Eye. I'm like, it's the same plot, except like, this movie has stupid shit though. Like he wants to learn how to fight, so he watches tapes on YouTube. I'm like, well, wait, if you're like taking your car to the track and like you're going to the range to learn how to shoot, well, why don't you just fucking take some lessons on how to kick someone's ass? Like, how much am I going to learn how to fight from fucking YouTube? So it was, it's just shit like that. And then there's like the main villain, his girlfriend, we see her passed out because she's full of heroin. So what does he do? He then shoots her up with more heroin. So when the good guys come, the girl that's filled with heroin pulls a gun out and has no problem shooting the two good guys with deadly accuracy. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, I'm an okay shot, but if you've pumped me up with heroin, I'm fucking putting bullets in the walls, man. I'm like, so just stupid shit like that just kind of ruins
theory, man. That needs to be a special episode.
Yeah. So not the greatest. The other one I watched, this one, it was like, they got me. I was on Amazon or something, like, this is leaving in 2 days. And I'm like, oh, it's Christmas time-ish. And it was, I'm like, all right, let me watch another Christmas horror movie. This one's from 2016 called Better Watch Out. And it was okay. There's like a horny 12-year-old, which is way too old to be fucking have a babysitter. I'm sorry. But he's a horny 12-year-old, and he's hanging out with his best friend. And there's a hot 17 or 18-year-old babysitter that's going to babysit them. And then there's a home invasion, and then there's a huge twist, which I don't want to give away if you haven't seen the movie. It was okay. I mean, the twist really threw me off because I did not see it coming. And we all hate, especially me, when you're watching a movie and you're like, I know exactly where this is going, and then you're 100% right. Better Watch Out really threw me, but then the end really kind of fell flat, so I really super wouldn't recommend it. And then the last one, another new one, this one's from 2022, My Best Friend's Exorcism. I think this was an Amazon exclusive. I know it was from the book that Grady Hendrix wrote a few years ago. I've met Grady a bunch of times because he goes to the Exhumed Films Horrorthons, and it was okay. It's definitely more Breakfast Club than it is William Friedkin's Exorcist. It's set in 1988. There's two girls. One of them gets possessed, and then a whole bunch of shit happens. But I don't know. I wanted more, I guess, more exorcism stuff and head spinning and vomiting, and there was a couple jokes, but again, it was the little things that annoy me. Like it's set in 1988, and these two girls are best friends, but like they've got posters on the wall of Boy George. And I'm like, yeah, I go, like, fucking wasn't Boy George like over by 1988?
83,
88, yeah.
83,
Like,
84.
shouldn't it? I don't know who 1988 shouldn't have been like
Poison, Bon Jovi, or
something. Corey Haim, I don't fucking know. Whoever, but not Boy George. I'm like, he was already over by then. So, but there was an 80s soundtrack, but nothing, really rocking. But it was okay. So I wouldn't highly recommend it. But if you're really bored and it's either this or the Twilight movies that Dan watches, I would go with this. And those are my picks.
I'll never put it down, will I?
Jamie, God of Thunder.
All right. I got a lot of shit here, so I'm going to go kind of fast and try to squeeze it in. I got an email last summer. I don't know if it came right from Indicator. I can't remember. But it was a pre-order of these movies from the French director. Now, Americans would say Jean Rollin, but I think it's like Jean Rollin or something like that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I got Fascination. These are really nice sets, too. And I got The Rape of the Vampire, which is a very cool cover. And I got Lips of Blood, which is just a soft core porn movie, basically. So I was doing homework at the time for our countdown ranking show for Blood Ceremony. And I was in the mood. I was listening to Blood Ceremony for a week and a half. And this email came right in the middle of listening to all those albums, and I was in the mood, so I pre-ordered them. Went in kind of blind. I mean, I kind of know what I was getting, but I went in mostly kind of blind. I would say Lips of Blood is fun. A lot of frontal neutery. Rape of the Vampire is first movie, I think, from 68 or 69. It's a struggle to get through. I think Fascination is the best of the three by far.
That's his most famous movie by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said his favorite script was Lips of Blood. I could see it being a nice script, but I also think it could have been like 45 minutes long. And I also got, don't want to wreck those J cards. No.
There's a couple before them that Indicator have already done.
There's what?
There's a couple of other ones that Indicator have already
Oh,
done.
yeah. I got those three, though.
They're doing the full 20.
And this came in the mail a few months ago, and I just finished the fourth one, Psycho 4K set, which is really nice. And I always loved the fourth one, and I almost didn't want to watch it again because I was afraid it wasn't going to hold up for me. And I saw it maybe 3 times in the 90s. Gave it 3.5 stars in my diary. Always said I loved the fourth one. And I'm watching it, and the backstory scenes, the flashback scenes are so great. The scenes where he's calling into the radio station, decent. The last 15 minutes is like a different movie. It's terrible. It's just terrible. I'm like, why didn't I notice that the last 15 minutes was this bad when I was in my 20s? I mean, he wants to kill his wife, and then he decides not to, and his wife is like, see, baby, everything's fine, and she still loves him. And then they burn down the house, and they're slowly walking away from the burning house. They're like maybe 10 feet away from the burning house. And then the next shot is the fire trucks are there. The firemen are there. They put out the fire. It's just smoking a little bit. They're still walking from the house. So they walked very slow, I guess. Or they stood and watched. I don't know. But it's very stupid. And then I got an idea for a shelf. For a theme for a shelf. And when I get an idea for a theme for a shelf, I start buying a lot of movies to fill that shelf. So right here, I've been watching a lot of 1950s sci-fi. And I had enough of them that I could put them on a shelf. I'm like, it's not enough. So I started buying a shit ton more and watching them. Like I got this past summer, Attack of the 50-foot woman, which should be Attack of the 50-foot transparent woman because of the special effects. Just got The Day the Earth Stood Still because you need that. Yeah. I'm thinking that needs to be on 4K, like a big box set.
It will
very, very soon. I almost didn't want to buy it, but I got The Deadly Mantis, which is a lot of fun. I got Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and this copy right here is nice. Tons of extras on here. Such a classic movie, still kind of scary. I got It Came from Outer Space, I talked about before. Very nice box set in 4K. I got the Terror from Beyond Space, which is
Oh,
a lot of fun. I
Inspired
got
Alien.
the Spider. And the great thing about the Spider is it includes the Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode where they watch it, the whole episode, and make fun of it. So you get both. And I watched it back to back. I watched the movie, then I watched them make fun of it. Oh, this is old. Them
that was great.
and The Thing from Another World.
Nice.
I watched this again and I saw something that I never saw before. And once I see it, I'm like, I'm never going to unnotice it. They laugh too much in that movie. They laugh way too much. Jokes at weird times. They're always, yeah, bad things are going on. They're making constantly laughing. There's a time and a place for that. And in that movie, it's all the time in every place. This Island Earth, which is really cool. And I got War of the Worlds I had, but I just ordered it on 4K because the cheapest way to get When Worlds Collide on Blu-ray is to get that on 4K, and the Blu-ray comes with it. To just get the Blu-ray is more expensive than that. So I ordered that. And then I got this Edgar G. Ulmer sci-fi collection, The Man from Planet X, Beyond the Time Barrier, and The Amazing Transparent Man. And I got to tell you, The Man from Planet X. Now, this guy specialized in cheap movies. He directed The Black Cat, I believe. Man from Planet X, that mask is so terrible. It's like paper mache with two holes, black holes, and no. I mean, it's 1951 and a cheap movie in 1951. But for some reason, it didn't bother me that much. I started feeling bad for the guy in the paper mache mask. So. Yeah, that's my first round. That was a lot, and I went right through it.
Nice.
You got a lot of good sci-fi stuff there.
I was gonna say,
Jamie, yeah, and there's a ton more there that I've had for a while.
Ulmer got banished to B movie or Z movie land because he was screwing around with one of the executives at Universal Studios' wives.
Oh,
and got himself blacklisted, and that's
Well,
why
he's one of
PRC.
the bizarrely is in the Criterion Collection with Detour.
Yeah.
Total Z-list director these days, but he's in the Criterion Collection. Detour is considered one of the great noirs of all time.
Yeah, I need to see that.
It's great. It's really simple and it's
and it's short. It's like 65 minutes. It's not even an hour 10.
Who was that? Anne Jeffries was the woman? Yeah. Bad girl. That was like the main bad girl for years in films.
So yeah, that's up there.
What's the one with the flying brains?
What's that called? Fiend Without a Face.
Yes, Jamie needs that one for sure.
And that is really good.
That's fun.
What is it again? Thing Without a Face?
Fiend Without a Face.
Oh, okay, all right.
When are they ever going to release on high def Day of the Triffids?
Oh,
there's rights problems with that. I know that.
Really?
Yeah, but it's to do with the estate, the John Wyndham estate, because the BFI announced it and then had to retract it.
Oh,
I loved that when I was a kid, man.
Oh, great!
I love the 1980s TV show.
I was going to say,
BBC.
the TV version too. I have a bootleg of it somewhere, and that was really good.
Then they made a sequel in a miniseries in 2007, which is actually a bona fide sequel to Day of the Triffids. It's not a remake. It's kind of weird.
But they just called it Day of the Triffids though, for some reason.
But it was a sequel, where they
it's like Halloween, where 3 sequels are all called Halloween kind of thing. But Doug Ray Scott's in that, if I remember right, Dan. I think he's the star of it. But yeah, the BBC one's the best.
All right, Davey.
Yeah, so a bit like Jamie, quite a lot to go through because it's that time of year, just gift cards and things that you have to get rid of and use up and blah, blah, blah. So I'll just fire through. RoboDog, the creation of RoboCop, came out recently.
Yeah, that was excellent.
You do not want the American version. If you can import this version from the UK, the American one misses a good chunk, about half of the bonus features that are listed on the back of it. They just completely forgot about them.
Oh.
Oops. And they compress a 5-hour documentary onto 1 disc, whereas it's 2 discs on the UK version. So it's not compressed to hell with artifacts and all over the place, with the usual gubbins all over it, but including rather wonderfully a Dick Jones postcard, which every kid needs, doesn't they? A Dick Jones. I work for Dick Jones postcard. So yeah, RoboDog. It's not a lot that you haven't heard before if you're a big RoboCop fan, but it's really good stuff. 5-hour making of RoboCop. I think you'll know if you really want this or not already. Bit of a triple header in terms of production and the guy who was responsible for these. Roger Corman, Cockfighter on Blu-ray, released in France. Bit of a genre fave with War of Notes, the Great War Notes. Never going to get released in the UK because of the laws about animal cruelty and depiction and whatnot. It'll just never be released here. So I thought I'll get round to it eventually. I don't know about you guys, but I keep wish lists on all the Amazons and just make sure that I keep tabs on what's been released where. And then when things start to go out of print, I panic buy and what do they call that? FOMO, fear of missing out. And end up buying them en masse. So yeah, Cockfighter, which is pretty brutal. Another Roger Corman that's just been deleted from Olive's signature, Bucket of Blood with Dick Miller, the 1950s classic. But it is a really fun black comedy. Dick Miller, I want to say the young Dick Miller, but he was never young. Even in 1959, he still looked a good 60 years old.
Like Michael Berryman.
Yeah.
He was a kid, but still looked like he was 60, 70 years old.
Yeah, he was 9 years old in this film, looked 63. But yeah, this is a great kind of take on House of Wax, where he's an artist who has to dispose of bodies after going on a bit of a rampage and decides that what's the best way to do it? How about paper mache statues and kind of burying them in the statues so no one will ever take the statues apart and blah blah blah. It's a really fun version of that kind of story. A lot of Corman favorites from the 60s, like the Poe cycle, are in here before they made those films. Recommended, and again, this is now out of print, so the olive version of Bucket of Blood. Speaking of Corman, films that have been in the public domain and have been on a million bad prints, there's now a label called Film Masters, and they are finally giving us great editions of these films. The Terror and Little Shop of Horrors. Finally, proper prints of these films with millions of extras, with a big booklet. It's full HD, The Terror in its original theatrical format, commentaries, documentaries, recut trailers. Little Shop of Horrors isn't quite as good. The materials just aren't as there. So they've kind of included that as a bonus HD print rather than the main feature, which I like that honesty as well. And they're doing a whole series of these twofers of Corman and related horror and sci-fi of the period, a couple of giant monster movies and things. So yeah, really recommend checking out Film Masters. They've only got about 8 titles so far, but very promising label.
Are they a
As a
US
Nicholson
label?
fan, that would be nice to have on my shelf.
Are they a
Yeah.
UK label or is that a US label?
US.
US
Yes.
label? Okay.
Yeah. One that I just found from browsing. One that I needed for completionist sake. It's the last Romero that I don't have on Blu-ray, or didn't have, Bruiser, from 2000 with Jason Fleming. It's one of his horror movies that just doesn't get talked about at all. But there's a reason for that. It's not great, but Jason Fleming's in it. It's pretty good stuff. It's a bit dream logic. It's a bit brutal, but it's not a great film at all. It's for completionists, for Romero, it's good stuff in terms of it's it's George, but it's not any more essential than The Dark Half or something like that. It's kind of lower tier, but solid enough. Speaking of completionism, one of the non-Giallo Martino films that I didn't have, Hands of Steel, which
Big VHS copy in the US of the dub version for years.
is a film that happened. Yeah, I mean, for a guy who was so original in terms of his giallos and the way they looked and the way they felt, his action films were either just rip-offs of Mad Max or Terminator, and usually both. And so you kind of get here. Still fun though, still fun. It's Sergio Martino, and I've always got a soft spot for Italian rip-off movies. No country were so shameless about their rip-offs than our friends in Italy. From Severin, recent Black Friday release of Spider Labyrinth, which is a film that I've been waiting for ages to come out. This is one of those where you want to just say nothing, just take my word for it if you trust me. But I will say, go into it expecting a kind of generic Italian horror, giallo-y inspired thing, and then get ready for the best last act of the movie you've seen in a long time. It's fucking nuts. Fucking nuts.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
everybody talks about that, but they never really give specifics, and I'm always
there's a
like,
reason for
"Can I
that.
get
It's
this?"
so good. You
Okay,
don't, you know those movies that you think, if I told you why this is good, it would ruin why it's good for you.
gotcha.
You know? So yeah,
I've
trust
written it
me.
down. I've written it down, Davey.
Yeah, I'll have to add it to the
What I'm
shopping
doing
list.
too there. There you go.
Spider Labyrinth, just out from Severn, yeah. So bless them. One of my New Year watches every year, so this isn't a new pickup. It's Criterion's Phantom Carriage from 1923,
Oh yeah.
directed by Victor Sjustrom, who was also a great actor in Wild Strawberries, the Bergman film. But this is essential stuff for anyone who likes early horror-esque but more fantasy-leaning horror, silent stuff, where the last person to die at the stroke of midnight on any given year essentially becomes the carriage person for the next year, the angel of death, if you will, and has to be the greeter for the next year of. And then there's a little bit of a proto It's a Wonderful Life, or if you like, Christmas Carol idea of reconciling your sins to see if you can, become a better person. And there's a little bit of a retcon at the end, but it's such a gorgeous film for the time, 1923.
Good
Victor
special
Schuster.
effects for the time too.
Really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, really top notch. Sweden had probably the best films going apart from Germany in the 20s. And they pretty much got swallowed up by America en masse. Like all of them at once got taken by Hollywood. Obviously, Greta Garbo would be the biggest name there, but yeah,
Yeah, Seastrom came to the U.S. and he did 7 Footprints to Satan,
yeah,
and then
which
that was it. I think he left Hollywood shortly after. He didn't.
hated it. Yeah,
Many
hated it.
many directors and actors from foreign lands. So nope, I'm better off back home.
Yeah, whereas the Germans kind of flourished a bit more because, for obvious reasons, they didn't have much of a chance to go back to Germany in the 30s, being mostly Jewish. So,
People like Fritz
yeah.
Lang got really like castrated. They lost total control. They didn't have that
Al-
control anymore.
Although he reinvented himself as a great noir filmmaker
Yes.
anyway. But yeah, Murnau didn't live long enough to really have the decline. But anyway, no doubt this is a Chris Allo favorite. Who Can Kill a Child? The
Oh, for
Spanish.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah.
Just the title tells you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's a great South Park episode that spoofs this whole thing, and I've never owned it. I've just seen the film, but by Narciso Ibáñez Serrador, which, yeah, what a brilliant little tight, tense film where not a lot happens, but it's got a horrible atmosphere for the whole time, and it's
The
all
feeling
about
of
that build
menace
up.
throughout the whole film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's all about that build up towards the end of can you well, there wouldn't be much of a movie if the answer was no. There's some brutal child killing in that film. Good stuff. I've always said that Todd Browning didn't direct any great sound movies apart from Freaks. I kind of want to reassess that after Warner Archive's recent release of Devil Doll, which pretty great, pretty great. Lionel Barrymore in drag for most of the movie should sell itself. It's a lot of fun. It's a very silly film. He's in disguise as a kindly old lady running a toy store, and he's trying to co-opt people into coming in. I mean, calling it the Devil Doll makes you think it's a proto uh, Tiny Tina thing, but it's not. It's a kind of black comedy, more in the vein of Arsenic and Old Lace. So I'd kind of recommend that. If nothing else, it's I think Todd Browning's second last film, so kind of worth checking out for that alone. And I definitely a Dan Brown favorite because he picked it on the Mario Bava episode we did, Dan, Pete, and I last year. 2 years ago now, 10 years ago now. It's that period where you cross the new year and you don't really know time anymore.
Pre-COVID, post-COVID, we don't know.
Yeah, back in the day, Days of Yore, Planet of the Vampires, which Dan had a lovely poster of, if I remember, behind him when we filmed that episode. So this is another one that, being a Kino title, being a Bava title, I needed something else for the cart, and I thought I should own that on Blu-ray. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure people know what that is, but essentially Alien, but with vampires, done by Mario Bava. Kind of sells itself. Yeah, that'll do me for this round, I think.
All right, cool. All right, I'll get the horror stuff out of the way first. So this got sent to me actually by the director of the film, who's a big fan of the channel, John Campapiano. Sorry, John.
He likes a good gravy.
Pennywise, the story of It, documentary all about the
Oh.
creation of the It miniseries back in the early 90s. Lots of fun. Gives you everything you'd ever want to know about this film, all sorts of behind the scenes footage and interviews with the actors and things like that. Really, really good if you're a fan of the original It. Just got this on 4K. Loved it. Exorcist 3.
Okay.
Otherwise known as Exorcist Legion, right? You've got 3 versions of the film on here.
Oh,
The
wow.
original theatrical cut, the director's cut, and the original version of the film.
Legion,
yeah, which has some footage that was added in that is not of the same quality the rest of the film, but they wanted to kind of complete William Peter Blatty's original vision of what the film was supposed to be. To me, I like the theatrical version the best, which has the addition of an exorcism scene and a couple other things, because it just makes the whole last half hour of the movie all the more fantastic. But at its core, it's basically kind of like a serial killer thriller with the serial killer reincarnated in the body of Father Karras, who we all thought was dead from the first film. Really, really interesting, really creepy. And basically this just kind of does away with whatever happened in the second film, Exorcist 2. It's as if that never happened, and it looks amazing in 4K. Really, really great acting performances in here. George C. Scott is amazing in this, so that's really
And
good.
it's got that nurse scene.
Yes.
It gives you chills every time.
Yeah, really, really good. Also picked up on 4K the remake of The Blob.
Oh,
Really good in 4K. Looks fantastic. Lots of fun. I'm not big on remakes a lot of times, but I think this one is different enough from the original that I like it. I'm not happy they're making another one, because do we really need to make a new Blob movie every 30 years? I mean, let's just keep remaking, but really, really well done. Based on Davy's recommendation, I went and picked up the Ninth Configuration. Speaking of William Peter Blatty.
speaking of The Exorcist.
Yep, there you go. Really good. Really good. I wouldn't really call it a horror film. It's kind of like, to me, it's like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with a different twist sort of thing. But
completely changes halfway through the movie from a weird kind of scuzzy comedy into a really deep philosophical film where Jesus is on the moon and strange stuff.
Right, it's in the same universe as The Exorcist.
Yeah, Scott Wilson's character was the same astronaut from the party that Reagan peed on the floor in. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Really cool. Really, really cool. Great dialogue in it. Love that a lot. And then my last one for this round, I just watched this. I've had it for months. Finally got around to watching it. Is Giallo Essentials.
Ooh.
Nice box set, which has 3 films in it. Out
Jesus, Pete, from the size of it, it looks like there should be like 20 movies in it.
Yeah, well, they're all just regular, Blu-rays in here. But we've got The Weapon, The Hour, and The Motive, which is very good. The Killer reserved 9 seats. Really good. And then, I don't know which one's my favorite. They're all really good. Smile Before Death. All really good Giallo films. Lots of nudity, lots of sex, lots of blood, pretty good acting, and really interesting plots and mysteries. And I think, Giallos have to work. The ones that work the best are the ones where they keep your interest, and at the end you're kind of like, huh? Who actually was the killer and why? And then they explain it to you, and there's lots of pretty ladies, lots of sex, lots of gore.
And all the titles are very similar. It's like
much.
Death knocks at the door again.
Yeah. The lizard and the scorpion knock twice to the Black Queen.
Yeah, the scorpion's testicles or something like that.
This one here, A Smile Before Death, is by Silvio Amadio.
Amadio.
Killer Reserve 9 Seats is by Giuseppe Benatti. That's the first one I watched. It's really good, actually. And then Francesco Mazzea, something like that. And that's this other one here, which is and that is a priest here. Priest winds up having an affair with 2 women, and neither one of them is happy about it. He tries to get out of the relationships. He gets killed, and all sorts of other people get killed. Very, very good. I would highly recommend this set, and this is from Arrow, of course, who always do a great job. And
What volume is that one? They have a
this
couple.
is they you know what, Dan, they
they
call
don't
them
number
like
them.
yellow, black, and
Yeah,
red.
they just call them
Okay,
the
the
color.
black one. Okay.
So this is, I guess this is the black one. The other 2 sets that came out prior have all sorts of the movies that are in them have all been available separately outside of the collections. This is the first one that came out where I don't remember seeing any of these sold separately, so I jumped all over this. Really, really good.
You need to be careful because they've used the same colors for the UK and they're different titles in some places.
Yeah.
So you might end up buying the same ones twice.
Yeah, you really got to watch like what the films are in all of these sets. But yeah, this is the first one of, I bought I have a bunch of the Vinegar Syndrome, the other Giallo sets that I have.
Forgotten Jolly, yeah.
Yeah, those are great because those films you really can't get anywhere else. But you got to be careful with these Arrow sets because, like I said, the first 2 have stuff that's already available separately. But yeah, this is really good. And yeah, if you like the Giallos with all those elements like I mentioned, these are a lot of fun. So back to Dan.
Oh, okay. Well, first I was just say another film that I saw that Chris saw, which was Silent Night. I'm just going to add to it, and I mirror Chris's comments right across the board, the whole thing. John Woo to action is to what John Ford is to westerns. As far as action sequences. But yes, came to America, nothing really stands out except Face Off when it first came. Right, Face Off when it first came. It kind of, but this is the best of his American output, like you said, and that doesn't mean anything because the Hong Kong stuff is Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But what I do like about John Woo, about this film, what I like about it is that whereas you watch the John Wick films, which are a lot of fun, and that's very like highly choreographed ballet dancing. John Woo films, in the action sequences, there's a little bit of choreography, but there's something down and dirty about his gunfights. It just gets right down to the nitty gritty. But like I said, had some stupid moments in it. I think Joel Kinnaman, he's an interesting actor. He played actually 4 years in a TV show called The Killing on AMC, and he played American, like a Detroit or a Michigan cop. So he's pretty good. I think he's a face to watch. I mean, in this film he doesn't say anything, but it was okay. Now we're going to get down to the last couple that are real interesting and goofy. I went and saw the film with Ethan Hawke, Julia Roberts. What is it? The last? God, I forgot the name. Oh, Leave the World Behind. I liked this film. It's not why I liked it is because it was very much along the lines, not to bring this up, but Fear of the Walking Dead. When the first episode came out, it's the fear of the unknown. We don't know what's going on. How do we get through this? And this film here is not just some dragged out, story. I think it's more of it's about a couple who she rents a house for her husband and the kids go on vacation in Long Island. They go out there, they're living in Brooklyn in some little small tenement apartment. They're probably paying $4,000 a month for, and so forth. They go out there, and all of a sudden, while they're there, they're losing reception. The kid is on the tablet watching TV the whole time, and they're starting to lose reception. Things are weird. And then they go to the beach one day, and they see in the distance an oil rig coming towards shore. And they're saying, he's getting very close, getting very close. Next thing you know, it lands on the shore. No one's on it. So they run home to the house. What's going on? They don't know what to do. There's no TV, nothing. At night, a black gentleman who is, what's his name? I cannot pronounce his name. He played in the 3rd season of True Detective. He was also in the Green Book. He's going to be he'll be playing Blade in the upcoming film. He shows up.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that ever comes out.
That's true. With a tuxedo, and his daughter has an evening gown, and she's trying to explain that he's the owner of the house. And they were in New York, and there was a blackout, and they thought it was kind of weird, and they just wanted to come home. And the interesting thing, this is where the real narrative of the story becomes. And the narrative of the story is there's a lot of suspicion going on. There's weird shit happening. And first off, when they're discussing with him, Julia Roberts gets defensive. She goes, "How do I know you're the guy I rented the house from?" I mean, racism comes out. It's a lot of commentary on today's world. And he goes, "Well, if it was the old days, we would have probably talked on the phone, had lunch. We both live in the city, rented the apartment." And what it's showing is we have become so reliant on all of this technology out there. And the world becomes so close to us, yet when the shit hits the fan, we don't know what the fuck to do. We are really even more lost than anybody that's living in the woods, because they're always lost. They don't really know what's going on. We are so in tune with the world. And that's the whole scary part about the film, is that paranoia sets in. They don't know what's happening. They go, Kevin Bacon has a small part in it as a friend of the owner of the house. And when they go visit him after the shit hits the fan, he's kind of like, "Get off my property." "Well, we were friends." He goes, "That was before." It just showed it's a commentary, everything from COVID to social media. But it's frightening because it could happen. There's a sequence with cars ramming into each other, which also goes into technology. And it does boil down to that it is some kind of sabotage, terrorism, but they don't know what it is. And it's just, by the end of the film, how it all wraps up, I'm not going to give it away. By the end of the film, it just kind of goes back to normal with the daughter who was obsessed with her TV. She found a bunker in some rich guy's house.
Friends. She's obsessed with Friends.
Yes.
She wants to know what's going to happen to Ross and Rachel.
And that's what you saw about the final episode. And at the end, it's just the cities explode. It's wild, but it's very slow moving. It's slow, very slow moving. And but I enjoyed it because it was more about the real scary things in the world are not the monsters and the rubber suits. It's not the guy with the hockey mask. The scary thing is the world itself. And we are deprived. That's the biggest commentary. So I kind of enjoyed it. It's a thoughtful.
Yeah, that's a Netflix film, right?
Yes, and it makes you think the next day and go like, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I'm not even sure why.
Right. It makes you neurotic. It makes you nervous.
Uneasy.
Yeah, uneasy, and that's really well done. I mean, the acting is good. I mean, what's his name is I think fantastic. The I can't remember his name again. From Blade. But he's fantastic in it, and it's a recommendation. It runs over 2 hours, but it's something you sits thought-provoking, and the next day you think about it and go, yeah, wow, hey. And if anybody was around, or especially us in the New York area when 9/11 hit, you just kind of like, it doesn't bring back memories, but you have this situation where it's kind of like, wow, what happened? What went on? As you're watching it happen during the morning. But that was the second one. I enjoyed that. Now we're going to get down and dirty and back to the weird winter. God Monster of Indian Flats. Oh, man, let me tell you something. The dialogue, there was so much choice, juicy dialogue in this film that I could spend a whole show just dissecting every line of this film. It makes the dialogue in Slithis seems like a soliloquy from Hamlet. And there's just some crazy shit that's it. The bottom line of the whole story, it starts out with a guy who's a sheep rancher, and he gets let off down in Reno, Nevada. And he's got a sheep jacket on. He goes in there and he gets rolled by the local. They grab him. He's got a lot of money. He made $200. And these guys like take him in a car to Virginia City, the actual Virginia City in Nevada. I think it's Nevada. And he's in there, and they roll him for his money in this. And then he gets picked up by a scientist who, once again, compared to the scientist in Slithis, this guy is just like Laurence Olivier, or as they said about Conrad Brooks, who was in Plan 9, the John Gielgud of bad movies. Just that, boom, it goes on. Anyhow, the whole thing is they find something has given birth, and it looks kind of like if a chupacabra had a child with Mr. Ed the horse. And they tout this monster, this god monster. He's trying to save it. There's the government's involved. It's just batshit crazy. Yet I could not look away from this thing. And I'm not going to give too much away from it because it's just, you have to watch it to believe it. I could not do it justice, just like you're talking about Spider Labyrinth. You have to see it. I can't. This is the Spider Labyrinth of bad cinema. once again, done by a guy who was really not a director. His name was Arthur Hobbs, I believe it was. Is it? Excuse me. Frederick Hobbs. Okay, he was an artist who only made 4 movies. This one, he made a film called Alabama's Ghost, which is another like really weird drive-in type of film. He made a film. He made his second film, ended up being a porno film, because that's the only way the guy would give him money to make the film. And it somehow slipped into the normal audiences. It's called Roseland, just like the dance place. And this film was actually a porno film, and it somehow slipped into mainstream cinemas. And then there's another film this guy made. His first film is about him trying to find financing to make a film. And that film was unseen for 40 years till they found a copy last year. It was donated. And they started restoring it. So this guy's like iconic, just bad films. The plots are insane. But this one, God Monster of Indian Flats, the irony of the whole story is they are saying, and as they say, that a sheep zombie movie that came out a few years ago from New Zealand called
Sheep.
Black Sheep.
Black Sheep
Yeah.
is inspired by it. So this thing has had a great cult following. It's out on Vinegar Syndrome. It's on what you want to call it's on one of their partner labels, what they call AGFA. I think it's AGFA, AGFA.
Yeah.
The great thing about it, this is one of these films that comes from something weird collection. There was probably one print in the entire planet that Mike Vraney had found. And even though it's been restored and it's nice and clean, it still has some of those like lines and dirt that come through it. They didn't, and it's just, so it's a lot of fun. Highly recommended. You could probably find this on YouTube or on the internet, but you got to watch it to believe it. It's amazing. Okay. The last one, here we go. I just felt like, getting a little like Asian fusion. I started watching a film called Black Magic by the Shaw Brothers in the 75. I didn't finish that one, but I decided to switch gears and go to Japan for some sushi and watch Matango,
The Mushroom People?
Attack of the Mushroom People.
Yeah.
This film,
That's a fun one.
the interesting thing about this film is that it's created by Ishiro Honda. He was the director from all the kaiju films and many of the Godzilla films, all these films. And this is kind of a diversion in the Japanese way they did film, because at that time they were farting around. They had Godzilla, the big rubber monsters. They had science fiction films that they toyed with. And most of their horror films were based on old revengeful like ghost cat stories and stories of that like Kwai-Dan or the Lady Vampire and all kinds of odd mythology that was made. This film, on the other hand, you'd think it was to be made in the late 60s. It was made in 1963. And total different diversion for the Japanese studios at that time. It's about a group of people that are on a yacht. There's a really bad musical number. There's like the owner of the yacht who has money and his mistress, he's brought along on the trip. There's a professor from the college and another person from the college who's an assistant. And then there's another couple there. There's guys that work on the boat. Well, they get caught in the fog. The fog lands it goes up on a reef, and they can't get out. So they go on the island. They're trying to survive. They can't find food. There's no fish in the water, if I'm not mistaken. They don't see birds. It's just very weird. And there's all these mushrooms growing around. And they hear noises. And what happens is they start running out of food, and one guy's out there and he decides to eat some of the mushrooms. Now they turn into catatonic killing machines. And they start knocking each other off in one way, shape, or form. Now the story is told in flashback that the guy, one of the survivors, is in the hospital, the sanitarium, telling his story. And by the end of the story, you'll find out that it's not really a happy ending. The interesting thing about this film, Matango, is that it was an original screenplay written for the Japanese version, but it was actually based on a 1907 horror story called, was it A Voice in the Fog? I believe it is. Sorry, there. Yeah, it was based on a 1920, A Voice in the Night. And and it was a very short story. You could find it on Wiki Notes online to read the entire story. It's not very long. But the interesting thing about this has a 6 degrees of separation with the Monsters Den, and this appeared as a TV episode in 1958 on a series called Suspicion, which was called Alfred Hitchcock's Suspicion series. That was the precursor to the Alfred Hitchcock Presents show. And the TV version takes place in the 1800s. Okay, it has a small role. It's a different story, but the same with the fungus or whatever it is, these mushrooms is on there. It's got Barbara Rush, who's an actress who's still alive to this day. She's like 99 years old. It's got a fellow named James Donald, who played in Quatermass in the Pit on the TV version, and two small roles in the film of the ship that finds these people that have been on the island is played by Patrick McGee from The Avengers and James Coburn. The episode is available online on YouTube. The quality is not very good. Only about 21 episodes of the 40 that were made exist. But this was Alfred Hitchcock's. He would produce all these shows. As a matter of fact, Norman Lloyd was involved with the production of this one particular show. But Mantango is a great thing. Never came to the theaters. It went directly to late night television, and that's how people learned about it. And over the years, it became big cult status. And it's kind of a diversion from their usual outpouring of product that they've had in Japan in those days in the 60s. So there you go. That's my watches.
One of many cool Japanese non.
And you could find this actually still. It's on Blu-ray from, I think, in England. You can get it, but you could find one on Tokyo Shock, which is on DVD for like under $15 on. And there's a couple of extras in there too. There's actually a commentary on there by the director. They have an interview with the special effects guy. So it was a lot for those days. I mean, Tokyo Shock used to do a lot of different things as far as extras and stuff. And this is a pretty good buy for $15. It gives you a whole insight into the show.
Craig's got his Prezi going. All right, Craig.
Real quick, these are just my non-genre things that I've been watching over the last couple of weeks. HBO, specifically HBO2 channel, has been showing a marathon each day, starting last Friday and actually ends today, of each of the seasons of. If I can fire this up. Oh, there you go. Of not Prince of Darkness, of
Great show.
The Sopranos. So I've been watching. I've seen the show many times over the years, but and I can fire this up anytime I want on HBO Max. But it's always nice when they just show them all in a row, and each day has been a different season. Today, as a matter of fact, is the final season 6 part 2 marathon that they were showing. So I was watching some of those earlier. Great quotable show that ran from, I want to say 99 to 07, I believe, was the last year. And with the mob in Jersey and in New York, always enjoy watching it, and has plenty of sex, violence, murders, dismemberments, and whatnot throughout all the seasons. So it's been still like to watch it every now and then. This other one, this is on FX that I've been watching. This is it's just a picture. This is Fargo season 5 that's currently running. This upcoming week is the season finale. The 10th episode is on. This season has John Hamm, famous from Mad Men, on the right. He's actually the villain in this, who plays a sheriff who is looking for his for his first wife, who escaped from his clutches, so to speak, played by the woman on the left, Juno Temple. She has escaped and has been under and assumed a different name, has a whole new family, and she in the first episode, she inadvertently gets into a scuffle at a PTA meeting with some other people, and she gets fingerprinted. So her fingerprints end up in the system, and John Hamm's character finds her after she'd been presumed dead, and he wants her back. But it's sort of one of those movies like You're Next, where she's very skilled but doesn't look it. She looks like a little. She's 5'2" in reality, and it looks really small and meek and everything. But she knows how to fight and shoot and everything. It's been a really fun season. So if you get the chance, check out Fargo on FX. I believe it also streams on Hulu if you have that. My last two are 80s comedies, which people know. You guys know I like my 80s comedies. I've never skied. I probably never will ski ever in my life. But even when I watched this movie when I was a kid or now, I would love to go skiing, and I love it. It's Hot Dog the movie. It's a great teen sex comedy with not a whole lot of big stars other than Shannon Tweed, really, at the time. David Naughton, who was in American Werewolf in London, is one of the major characters in this as well. But just a fun, silly 80s movie with lots and lots of skiing and going on in it, and as also with some nudity and silly antics, drinking and whatnot with the characters in it. I always love this movie, and I would buy it on. I think it's on Blu-ray, but I'm not sure if it's beyond that or anything. I used to have this on DVD back in the day. And my last one is Tom Hanks won a couple of Oscars in the 90s, but I always think this is his finest performance. That is Bachelor Party from 1984. Love it. And the Nick the Dick scene is still one of the funniest scenes in the cinema in the 80s. My wife even cracks up laughing at the is this a foot long? And then some, scene in the strip joint with all the bridal shower goes to try to infiltrate the guy's bachelor party. I always have a lot of fun watching this movie, and it's a classic. Still gets the laughs from me now, and that's Bachelor Party. So that was my list for this time.
All right, cool. Chris.
All right, yeah. These three movies, I'll run through them real quick. They're all terrible, but I all enjoyed them. They're all it's all Drek, and it all stars the late great John Carradine. I watched one on YouTube, and then it pulled up others, so I was like, "Oh fuck it, okay, it's free. I'll watch them." So I started with the first one I had seen part of many years ago, and it's 1970s Bigfoot. I know you're a Bigfoot fan, Pete, so you'll probably like this one. It's John Carradine and Chris Mitchum. And it's terrible, but I liked it. Chris Mitchum plays a biker, but he looks like a 1970s hippie college kid, and his really hot girlfriend gets kidnapped by Bigfoot. And this other really hot girl, also with giant boobs, gets kidnapped by Bigfoot, and they're in the woods and they're kidnapped by Bigfoot, but their hair looks great. There's no dirt on them, and they're just tied up to two trees. Bigfoot doesn't eat them. He doesn't rape them. He just kind of looks at them. And then so Chris Mitchum gets he tracks down John Carradine, and John Carradine, I think, is the mayor, and he gets the local sheriff. And then they're like, okay, let's go save your girlfriend. But Carradine wants to turn it into King Kong because he's like, well, if we can capture Bigfoot, then we can take him on the road and, make money. And it's a terrible movie. It looks like shit. But if Vinegar Syndrome or Severin restored it on Blu-ray, 100% I would buy this thing. The next one was probably worse than Bigfoot. This one came out in 1980 and also starring John Carradine, but not Chris Mitchum, his brother James Mitchum. Got to work the family in. And this is Monster, which is also known as Monstroid. And it has a great movie poster, and it has a great poster.
Yeah.
Basically, it's Jaws sort of redone, but with a monster in the lake. It's in Mexico. I mean, it's the usual sci-fi trope, I guess, where there's some kind of chemicals being dumped in the lake and it created this monster. They show the monster like a whole bunch of times throughout the movie, but it is so fucking dark, like you can't see it. Like it's eating people and stuff, and I'm like, for fuck's sake, I can't see a goddamn thing. But it's there, so hopefully someone will clean it up. At the end, you see the monster, and I'm like, oh god, it looks terrible. But at least you see it, and even that is so stupid because there's like James Mitchum like jumps in the water, and like he jumps in the water, and it's at night, but then they show a shot of the monster's head, and it's daylight, and it goes back. I mean, this is a terrible movie, but again, if this comes out as a deluxe special edition, I'm buying it. And the other one, the last one, maybe I would buy it. I'm not sure. It's a little suspect. And this one, I usually have my 3-try rule. If I fall asleep 3 times on a movie, I'm usually done with it. Now, this one, I know I fell asleep twice in the past, but I did give it one more shot. Again, tying in with our previous episode where we did all the Silent Night, Deadly Nights. This one, I was always curious, and it was Silent Night, Bloody Night. This is from 1972, starring John Carradine, also Patrick O'Neill, and Mary Warnoff from all the classic cult stuff. And man, this one's a fucking weird one. It's really, as I watched it, it's really kind of a giallo because there's a bunch of kills. You don't know who the killer is, but you just see the killer's black gloves. It's this old man. He dies. His grandson inherits the house, but he has it for 20 years. And the grandfather's like, you can't change it. And I forget what other rules there was. So after 20 years, he goes to sell the house to the local townsfolk for cheap and get out of Dodge. So he comes to town to sell the house, and then all these murders start happening in town and around the house. And it gets to the ending, and then there's the big reveal, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is so stupid. Like, I don't want to give it away, but it's really fucking dumb. Like, so dumb. But I don't know, man. If there was special edition, yeah, maybe I'd still buy it. I probably would.
Maybe they'll put it as a three package deal.
There we go.
Just for you.
John Carradine collection.
The John Carradine triple feature. And in all 3 of them, not to make fun of anybody with disabilities, but in all 3, I'm always watching going, are his hands fucked up in this one? Because I don't know when that happened exactly. And yet I think they're fucked up in all of them. And every time I'm like, God, how's he wipe his butt like that? But that's just me. So
they did a sequel to that, and it was 2015.
Yes! I had no idea, Davey.
Yeah,
I just saw the
waited
trailer.
43 years.
Maybe Monster was a sequel to Slithis.
Because they did a remake. They did a kind of remake thing, Silent Night, Bloody Night, but then they did an actual sequel, and you think,
what? Well, and not to give anything away, but I'll give it away. Fuck it. They demolished the house at the end of the movie. So how could you even do a sequel? Because you can't go back to the house.
Yeah, it needs to be like Christmas Evil, a one and done.
Right. But yeah. So an interesting movie. I'll say that for sure.
Apparently with John Carradine, like the director Fred Olin Ray, like John Carradine just loved to act, and he'd do anything, just pay him.
Right.
You'd never know.
Fred Olin Ray had filmed John Carradine, like he'd hire him for a couple of days, and he'd have him one minute, he'd have him dressed up as a mad scientist or dressed up like this, and John Carradine, a la Bela Lugosi and Plan 9 from Outer Space, would appear in films for the next 3 or 4 years that Fred Olin Ray would put, because he paid him as an actor, had the footage, and said, hey, we're going to have a laboratory scene. Let's use that. And it would say, and John Carradine.
Same as Cameron Mitchell. They had quite a lot of footage of him.
Yes.
And he was still in about 5 movies after he died.
Stock footage, and they just keep inserting in places.
Yeah, of him just sitting at his desk at home, and they would just film inserts for films with no scripts. Just we'll think of a script later on, and yeah, that's good B-movie stuff, isn't it?
Didn't begin and end with Ed Wood. It didn't.
Well, it's amazing because I went on the Wikipedia to find the dates, the years of the movies, and when you click on John Carradine, it's one of the only actors I've ever seen where there's entire segments, and it's like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the It's like, oh my god, how many fucking movies is this guy in?
He was in a lot.
Unbelievable.
Hey, come on, he's great in The Howling, having like a nervous breakdown. He's also great as the doctor and what everything you want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask. You know, like what
A
do you?
lot of stuff.
I mean, he has some good stuff.
Yeah. Oh man. Jamie.
All right. I'm going to tell you what, Pete. Sometimes you have about 17 people in Hudson Valley Squares. Like the squares are so little you can't even see everybody's face, and you're over. Done. Hour,
Not
2
us.
minutes. I don't know how you guys do it.
Not us.
So I'm going to go. I got an email a few months ago, like $5.99 Blu-rays. I can't remember who emailed me. And I picked up a few. One of them was Mortuary. Because that cover just reminds me of being in a video rental place. Yeah, and Bill Paxton hamming it up. And the best thing about this is MVD, the company that distributed this, their logo before the movie looks like the blue screen when you first turned on your VCR. And then it says play in the upper left-hand corner. So it looks like you're starting your VCR. I also got this. It's a comedy, fantasy comedy from the 80s. I loved it as a kid, about 15, 16 years old. I used to watch it on HBO. I think I taped it on VHS and watched it a few times. The Heavenly Kid. Does it still hold up? This silly fantasy comedy? Has anyone ever seen this?
Yeah.
I think I saw it
It's
on
kind of like a
HBO,
cult following in a way.
Yeah,
A 50s guy in the 50s or early 60s dies drag racing, and then he has to go on a train in purgatory for like 30 years and then
Yes.
come back and then help a kid be cool in 1980, 1985.
Jason Gedrick from Iron Eagle is
Yep.
the main character.
There you go. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's silly, but a lot of
Didn't the
fun.
guy who
I
played
got the Disturbance in the Force. It's a documentary
yeah.
about the Star Wars holiday special, which is really good, really funny. I didn't know Bruce Valanche had anything to do with that Star Wars holiday special.
Thought it-
I had
I
no
thought it
idea.
was about
I just
half
knew
an
he
hour
was the
too
center
long.
square.
I thought it was far too long. That
It
documentary.
reminds you of how bad TV. Am I breaking up? I have a feeling I'm breaking up.
You're on delay for some reason, yeah.
a little bit.
Am I?
It's okay.
Yeah,
No.
Pete's.
No, you're
Okay. You like old shit? Because I got some old shit. I just picked up Marx Brothers
Mm-hmm.
with 5 movies on it. And here's the weird thing about it. I watched Animal Crackers for the first time on this the day before it went public dominion. I didn't know what was going on. It was out for 100 years. I've been alive for 54 years. I just happened to watch it right before. And I got Buster Keaton.
Oh yeah.
And this has Sherlock Jr., the General, and Steamboat Bill Jr.
Mhm.
I never saw Steamboat Bill Jr., so that was new to me watching it. And Sherlock Jr. is always going to be my favorite. I think Steamboat Bill Jr. is the second best on this, and then I will go General the third. But it's all kinds of iconic scenes that you've seen clips of that you didn't know was in this movie. All kinds of stunts. And then I went on a binge watch and I got Charles Bronson in Death Wish on 4K.
Nice.
And then I got the second one on 4K. Brutal rape scenes, and that's disturbing.
Is that the uncut version on the 4K?
It has to be. The more ridiculous these movies get, the better they are, if you ask me. The first one is a good movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's not as violent or action-packed as you may think it is.
Yep.
It's kind of like Blue Oyster Cult. They're not as heavy as you may think they are. You got to be reminded. This one, however, I think is the most fun movie.
It's the best one, yeah.
I mean, this is just like, it's the 80s. Let's go full blown, Schwarzenegger and Stallone, Rambo. That's got to keep up with the Joneses, right? And you get to see Deanna Troy naked in it. So there you go. That one's really good. I watched the commentary to that one too, because I'm sitting here. There's commentary. What does this guy have to say about this movie? It wasn't much. It was very boring. Death Wish 4 It's
Nah,
stupid.
4 and 5. No,
4 and 5 are
It's
shitters.
very stupid. Michael
Is that the
Parks does his best.
crackdown? Is that
Yeah,
the
Michael Parks does his
crackdown?
best. Or is he in this one? Oh God, now I'm getting them all screwed up. You know what? These two movies kind of blended in my brain. They're
Yeah.
both 5 is 5. I may not watch again. 4 is
5
but
feels
none of
more
them
like
are
a
really
prequel
boring
to
though.
Family of
Is
Cops.
Michael
It
Parks
feels
in
like
the
the
5th
pilot for
one?
that.
Yeah.
What is the one? Which one does he gets? What is the one where he gets like a rocket launcher in the mail?
That's number 3. That's the
Three.
end of
That's
number
the best
3.
one,
It's
yeah.
like
All
a
the cool things you're
classic.
thinking of is in 3.
Okay, yeah. You know,
And it was filmed outside of London, Rather Bizarrely, even though it's New York.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's what
it's
the
so
boring guy said on the commentary.
and it's Michael Winner who ended up a food critic. Rather bizarre career, doing all these sleazy movies and then being a food critic and doing the insurance adverts in the UK. But yeah, I mean, some of his movies are just so bad. But he must have had something on Charles Bronson because Bronson worked with him about 15 times.
I forget what the name of it is, but the documentary about Golan Globus is really a lot of fun. That goes into all
it
the
goes
Oh
to
yeah.
that whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. And there's also a great, if you ever get a chance to read, there's a book out there called The Last Action Heroes.
Heroes, yeah.
And it goes into the careers of all the top 6 or 7 action stars and how they worked their way up through it and all the, all the controversy and some of the rivalries and stuff. And so some of it was true. So it's a fun listen. I listen to it on Audible in an audiobook, and it's fun to listen to.
Oh, I think it's called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold
Yes.
Story
That's yeah,
of
because
Canon
it's
Films Canon Films.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah,
It
friend.
is funny how every one of his girlfriends gets murdered. All these movies, and he never lets them know. By the
Except Jill
way,
Ireland.
I've had 4
He's-
chicks, and they've all been murdered. So
Yeah, they're like
no,
they're like
and
the
they're
drummers
all
of
half
Spinal
his
Tap.
If he's 43, they're 21. If he's 63, they're 31.
Yeah, they're like the drummers of Spinal Tap. The odds have it that you will survive if you're Charles Bronson's girlfriend in a Death Wish movie.
Actually, Death Wish, very good chance. I saw it a couple of years ago. Not the Bruce Willis one, but they made a movie with Kevin Bacon called Sentence, which was actually pretty surprisingly was good, and I think it was pretty down and dirty. That was a fun one.
Cool. All right, Davey.
Okay. Let's see. Proof that any old shit can come out in a super deluxe edition these days. A 3-disc version of Jaguar Lives from Germany, the cult movie with Christopher Lee's the reason I bought it, but as the original poster there with Donald Pleasance and Joe Lewis was the ostensible star of the film. Never really worked out for him, but yeah, Jaguar Lives getting a 4K Blu-ray and CD soundtrack edition from Germany. What a time to be.
Yeah. Why can't Jim Cotta come out on those?
Fuck yeah.
That's a great movie. Yeah. He died last year, the guy that was in Jim Cotta. He died last year, didn't he?
Kurt Thomas?
Yeah.
Oh.
I taped it on my DVR off Turner Classic Movies. I will never erase it until there's a disc.
I'll never see a pommel horse the same
There's
way.
a DVD, but there's no HD version. Yeah.
I have that too.
A show from, I think it was on ABC in the 70s. And I love my anthology horrors. This desperately wants to star Orson Welles as the horror host, but they just got Sebastian Cabot and tried to dress him up like Orson Welles as best as possible. It's produced by William Castle, so it's kind of his last big hurrah because this is William Castle in the 70s. But this is full of vampires and werewolves and witches and things, so it's not one of your usual kind of thriller ones or Tales of the Unexpected, where it was just people, normal people, and then there would be a murder or something, with a small twist. This actually does have more fantastical elements. To compare it to anything, it's more like Night Gallery than anything else. I'd say that's the closest comparison. On Blu-ray from Australia, but region free, I believe. And one of the great extras, you get William Castle's ghost story of the old LP of him reading ghost stories, which pretty good stuff. But yeah, recommended. Vinegar Syndrome, as I've been discussed a few times, have recently released on 4K by one of my absolute favorites, one of my underrated favorites, by one of my absolute favorites, Existence by David Cronenberg. In this rather disgusting edition, which it kind of feels like skin. I don't really want to know how they made this, to be honest, but this is, yeah, there's missing people around their factory. I don't want to know about it. But yeah, I loved this when it came out, and they tried to market it as his version of the Matrix, and no, it couldn't be further away from that. Just because there's a few similarities in terms of virtual reality worlds and things, doesn't mean it's that. And anybody that knows Cronenberg knows this is closer, as the kind of cover tells you, this is closer to Videodrome than it is to the Matrix. Jude Law's in it, Christopher Eccleston's in it. This is an underrated. It's probably his last really Cronenberg film before he kind of started doing those more mature dramas in the 2000s, and then came back obviously last year or 2 years ago now with Plum. But yeah, this and Spider, I'd say, were his last two great Cronenbergian movies of that era. But yeah, Existence in 4K.
Is that the Australian version? Is that from Australia?
No, Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh, okay.
VS. Came out on Black Friday again. Speaking of Black Friday, I think I showed volume 1 of this on a previous episode. Volume 2 of Severin's Danza Macabra,
Okay.
which
The first one was
just get this. Just get it right now. Just pause the episode and go and get it. You get Barbara Steele and Antonio Margheriti's Castle of Blood. You get the Jekyll TV show from 1969, 1971's kind of Dracula take on They Have Changed Their Face. Rosalba Neri is seduced by the devil or devil himself and the devil's lover. So you get TV shows, you get 4Ks, you get soundtracks. It's just absolutely stacked stuff from Severin. This is probably better than Volume 1, to be honest. And anytime you add Barbara Steele into a set, I'm going to be more interested than not, because she's one of the real icons. But yeah, Danza Macabra Volume 2. So you get 3 movies and a miniseries basically in this, but all top quality stuff. Especially Castle Blood, which Antonio Margheriti's a really underrated director, I think. I don't think I need to discuss these movies very much because we recently covered them, but Arrow have just put out the Chucky collection in 4K, which it's all the Chuckies. So Child's Play, 1, 2, 3, Bride, Seed, Curse, Cult, and the documentary Living with Chucky all in one big set on 4K. So yeah, if you want to know how we rank them, just go back and watch that episode. Yeah, don't really need to go into it, but yeah, I mean, look at that. That is all the extras just listed there. Yeah.
Did you get that after our ranking?
It only came out a few weeks ago, yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah. How long will it take you to watch those again after?
Well, I'll watch the extras, but I'll only revisit them probably when the show comes back. Because the show they filmed season 3 part 1, and then the strike caused them to split that in 2. So I think it's coming back in the summer. So I'll probably revisit them later this year. And then just out, in fact, it's not out yet, but Arrow sent it early. The Coffin Joe box set, which we've been waiting for something like this for so long. This is essential stuff. I've only watched about half of it so far, but this is basically every appearance that Coffin Joe had from his own original trilogy to, I mean, it's hard to explain even who Coffin Joe was. He starts out as a character in Brazilian horror films in the 60s, and then he starts to become a character in other films and a horror host. And so it almost goes more Elvira-like in a strange way. Starts becoming a horror host, but then starts appearing in films again that aren't Coffin Joe films, but as Coffin Joe. It's really strange, but there's not really an equivalent to it. Yeah. And the last Coffin Joe appearance was like 2015, and they're all here. So it's a big kind of 50-year retrospective of Coffin Joe, who is, yeah, and again, look, just for extras alone from Arrow, that is, yeah, inside the mind of Coffin Joe, and they're all in individual cases with a big poster, business card for Joe himself. Yeah, this is Titanic stuff. This is I know it's January, but this is kind of box set of the year worthy material already. And then I'll round off with a couple that I picked up just because they've been on the list for a while and they finally went down in price. Because one I've got millions of copies of, and one it's not a great film. Fulci's Demonia, which Arrow released. I've never loved Demonia. I don't think it's a great Fulci film, but I think there's good bits in it. I think it's worthy. And again, when you're talking Arrow, it's got so many extras on it, including the feature-length documentary Fulci Talks on disc 2 for this limited edition. Just a big 2-hour interview with him that's turned into a documentary, a bit like that De Palma film from a few years ago. So it's worth it for that, really. And then you get a bonus film, if you like, of a solid, if unspectacular, Fulci. One film that's not solid, it's a Stone Cold classic Fulci. It's just that I've owned it so many times that I didn't feel the need to rush out day one 4K of House by the Cemetery.
Sure.
Which, yeah, how many times did we get these original Fulcis and still go out and buy them? You know, The Beyond and City of the Living Deads and, you know, New York Ripper, and still buy them,
Yeah.
buy them. But yeah, great artwork is always from Arrow on these kind of things. Once more, look at the contents alone, just for the extras on that. They know their audience that will sit and watch hours and hours and hours of this kind of thing. Better balance that before they topple over. And then speaking of things that have Fulci and old pickups, Arrow used to release the great white box editions that looked phenomenal on the shelf when you lined them up. They came in little window boxes. And their last ever one, which I could never find, was Zombie Flesh Eaters. They did it as a limited run of 500, which, Chris, help me. What was that called in America? Was that Zombie or Zombie
That was
2?
just Zombie, yeah. And
Zombie.
I have that window box one myself.
So yeah, so I finally found a copy of it. There's only 500 of these. They did it as a kind of farewell to the window box edition. The kind of novelty of these was you choose your own cover by flipping it round, and then the inside gives you 2 more covers that you can flip and blah blah blah. And they dropped these for price reasons. They kind of put a poll out and said, would you rather we bring the price down a little bit and drop the window boxes? And people voted for yes. And the prices went up in a couple of years anyway, so what difference did it make? I'd rather pay a bit more for a premium product. And these looked so nice lined up on the shelf, a whole collection of these original white box Arrows, where they released, you know, Red Scorpion, and that was worth buying because it looked so bloody nice. The Dolph Lundgren classic, or Vamp with Grace Jones. But yeah, so that's one that I've got probably 5 copies of, but to have that one that I missed out on in 2013, I want to say, that was more of a collector's thing rather than a watch thing. So yeah.
The longest time, the Dawn of the Dead and the Day, that's the only way you could really good copies years ago.
Yes, and I'll never part with those because the Day of the Dead comes with a comic book that's exclusive to that set as well, which kind of carries on the adventure a little bit. Just like their standalone of Demons and Demons 2 comes with a comic book of what would be Demons 3. So yeah, some nice Arrow exclusives that you can't get anymore. So yeah.
Good stuff. All right, to finish this off here, I did stream one film recently, the latest from Gareth Edwards, The Creator, sci-fi film that came out in late last year. That wasn't too bad. Basically, a little derivative of other films I've seen, but basically set in the future, 2070, the war between humanity and AI, right? Are we going that direction? Who the hell knows? That was pretty good. Saw Aquaman 2 in the theaters. That was fun. Not a classic, but it was fun. It was entertaining. I dug it, you know. And then as far as stuff I picked up and watched at home, Sisu on 4K.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Loads of fun. The Finnish killing machine taking out Nazis, you know, how dare they interrupt him and his dog and his horse searching for gold. And so it's it says here, Glorious Carnage. That is the film. It's basically him going out and killing the Nazis. A lot of fun, a lot of fun.
And it's got a great last line in the film. It's very reminiscent of Yojimbo. When he makes a comment at the end of the film, why he has this gold, whereas in Yojimbo, everybody's dead. He makes this comment, and it's an interesting comment. He just sums it all up.
Yeah, he has no lines about the whole film, and then
why do you want to get rid of the gold?
Yeah, exactly.
I have a cool steel book of it somewhere.
Good
Good
film.
movie. Good movie. Here's a good one too, also on 4K. Red Sparrow
Oh yeah, with Jennifer Lawrence.
with Jennifer Lawrence. Really good, action-packed, kind of bloody spy thriller type thing. Really enjoyed this one. Good, really good cast in it. She's great in it as well. I mean, her Russian accent throughout the film is kind of a little suspect, but she pulls it off as best as she can, and she looks great, and it's a lot of fun. Really good film. I found the 4K for Ronin. Always loved this film. Great crime action thriller with one of the great car scene chases of the last million years. I'm a big De Niro fan, so I had to get that. And then Jamie's favorite film, Oppenheimer. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. I
Love
watched it a couple
Oppenheimer.
times
That
already.
was in my target.
That's right. That's right. Because I couldn't find a copy around here, so Jamie picked me up a copy. But yeah, I really like this a lot. I went in really not knowing much about it, what it was going to be, but everybody raved about it, so I figured, and I like Nolan's films, so the acting is phenomenal. The story is gripping. It's tense. Yeah, I really dug this a lot. And
Laszlo, you say 3 times you fall asleep, you're done. You'd fall asleep 3 times in the first 15 minutes.
oh yeah, Chris wouldn't like this at all.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off.
Yeah,
Apparently, it's a juggernaut with the awards coming up, like all the Academy Awards.
won a bunch. Well, won a bunch of Golden Globes. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. It's
Good for them.
I was quite shocked. I'm like watching a scene all of a sudden. I'm like, whoa, Florence Pugh naked. Holy cow! I didn't expect
Yeah,
that.
Oh, it's
that's
getting
that's
insane cast. Like Rami Malek pops up like 2.5 hours in for 1 minute. And
Yeah,
all
there's
these
so many people in the
just-
film, and like they're like, oh, starring this person, that person. Then you wait for them, and then like there for like 1 second. I'm like, okay, whatever. But
Yeah.
I'll just look up the nude scene on Mr. Skin.
there you go.
I'm good now.
There you go. So that's what we got, folks. That's what we've been watching over the break. And if any of these sound interesting to you, go check them out. They're readily available. And we'll see you in 2 weeks here on the Monsters Den. We're going to do so. Just to give you a little backstory here, Mr. Kaminski over here finally went and took the 4K plunge. He bought a 4K player. He's been ordering up 4K discs over the last 2 weeks. And we figured, hey, why don't we do an episode where we each kind of recommend 5 4Ks that are reasons for anybody to go get into the whole 4K craze, right? So this will all be kind of like 4K 101, why you should upgrade to 4K, and some of the discs that we feel are great places for you to go, and maybe a couple that you may want to stay away from. So that'll be happening in 2 weeks' time. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on the Monsters Den. For Jamie Laszlo, Chris Allo, Craig Kaminski, Davy Gallagher, and Dan Brown, I am Pete Pardo. See you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.